Hi, I'm Pernilla Rudlin, Managing Director of Rudlin Consulting Limited and the European, Middle East and Africa representative of Japan Intercultural Consulting. Welcome to Japanese Business Mysteries Explained in 5 minutes. First one we're going to look at is understanding Japanese hierarchies and how compensation works. They used to say there were 3 treasures of the post-war Japanese employment system. They came about under conditions of labour shortage when Japan was trying to reconstruct itself after the Second World War. In order to be able to recruit people, at times when they couldn't actually afford to pay them very much, Japanese companies offered people lifetime employment and seniority-based promotion. So in other words, the longer you stay with us, the more money you'll get paid. Japanese employees did, of course, have a lot of negotiating power, so they set up company-based unions rather than industry-based unions. Still, to this day, most graduates join their Japanese company around April the 1st of the year in which they graduated and stay through to retirement, which was 60 but is now increasing. These people were known, and still are known, as seishain, which literally means proper staff, or we'd probably call them permanent employees. In the 1980s, they tended to join the ippanshoku or jimushoku, a generalist administrative track, usually for females. Or they joined the sogoshoku, which was a generalist management track, usually meant for males. The reason they made this distinction was that sogoshoku committed you to going wherever your company wanted to put you, either geographically or in terms of business divisions or functions. And it was felt that women should be at home looking after the family and therefore couldn't be quite so geographically mobile. And you still see to this day quite often Japanese men will get sent abroad to work, but their wives and family will stay at home. This is known in Japanese as tanshin funin. However, the Equal Opportunities Law was introduced in 1986, which made it illegal to specify gender for either of these tracks. So women were invited to join the sogoshoku so long as they committed to being flexible and mobile. And of course, men could join the ippanshoku or jimushoku track if they wanted to, although I don't think any men actually ever did. Another thing that still continues to this day is that the new graduates, usually several hundred in terms of the larger Japanese companies, join around April 1st all together in one big group. And there's an entrance ceremony and a speech from the president. And this group know each other as their doki, or peer group. It's a bit like American high school. They have a kind of year number invisibly attached to the back of their shoulders. The seishain were automatically members of the company union until they became managers, and the company union would negotiate base pay every spring, quite often known as the spring offensive. This compensation, the base pay, was traditionally based on noryoku, which means potential, and also seniority. So every year your pay grade would increase automatically with your seniority. A bonus is also paid twice a year, and traditionally this wasn't based on individual performance but on company performance. So in effect, most people were getting monthly payments that were 1/18 of their salary, and the remaining salary was made up of 2 bonuses of 3/18 of the salary. These bonuses were paid towards the end of the calendar year and just before the summer holidays. Japanese hierarchies then, really nobody has titles, although they have some very obscure ones like shunin or shuji up to about the age of 40. This is when they're in the company union and they're not considered to be management. The first management positions are known as kacho. There's also something called a shitsucho, which means the head of an office. Depending on the company, this can be more senior than being the head of a team. But anyway, I've put it down at the bottom there as shitsucho. Most people should be trying to become kacho by the time they're 40. And when you become kacho, you leave the company union. The next big grade is bucho, which is usually translated as general manager or senior director or something similar, meaning that you're heading up a division, and you're aiming to get there by the time you're 50. When Japanese companies were constantly expanding, this was of course possible for many people because the pyramid was ever widening, and if you got promoted, it was likely there was a position for you to take up. But now this pyramid has started to shrink, so more and more people are being forced out before the age of 50, either to sort of retire early or they get sidelined out of line management. And this group are quite often known as the window gazing tribe because they get given desks near a window with a nice view but nothing to do all day. After bucho, there's honbucho, and then some companies have something called a bumoncho or a fukubumoncho, which is the head of a business group or function. And then we get up into the sort of board level. Japanese boards used to be huge with many tens of people. Now most Japanese companies have shrunk those boards right down so that there are only a few so-called representative directors. The kaicho and the shacho, the chairman and the president, and the fukukaicho and the fukushacho maybe. There are now lots more what are called corporate executive officers who aren't actually representative directors on the main board, but are hovering around underneath it. Sometimes they come with titles like Senmu or Jomu, Senior Managing Director or EVP, or Managing Director or SVP, or Executive MD, all sorts of versions of it. In some companies you will also find Riji, which literally means director. It's the same name that's used for people who are trustees of a board as well. So this system has been changing. Most Japanese companies now have a two-track system, seniority-based grades as before, but quite often these only apply to junior grades. And then going with that is a role and competency-based compensation, where your bonus is affected by individual performance rather than just the company performance. Because there's now another labour shortage going on with a rapidly ageing population and a declining population, some companies have therefore started year-round graduate recruitment and also being much more open-minded to hiring in mid-career from other companies. Here's some links to have a look at if you want to know more on the mysteries of Japanese business.